Christine and Paul had been married for 4 years. Recently, Christine switched jobs because her previous position offered no growth opportunities and her paycheck often came late. The new role seemed way more promising, better conditions, and management promised a bright future. At first, Paul was genuinely happy for her. She had simply left her old job, despite liking her coworkers and having made quite a few friends there. But that initial happiness didn't last long. About a month after starting the new job, Christine began staying late more and more. First, half an hour, then an hour, then two. In the beginning, Paul would pick her up after his work. But after she started running 30 to 40 minutes late regularly, she told him she'd get home on her own. When Paul asked if she was getting paid for all this overtime, Christine looked down and sheepishly admitted that for newcomers, working late was pretty much the norm. It was how they earned the trust of their bosses. She added that the company was rolling out new programs she had to learn, which made her stay late for now. Since Christine was the only new employee, she could comfortably stay in the office alone to figure things out after everyone else left. Paul accepted her late nights, thinking she had to prove her dedication and commitment for the long haul. Sometimes he'd call her in the evening just to check if she was okay and not burning herself out. One evening, Paul rang Christine, but she didn't pick up right away. He figured maybe she'd stepped away or put her phone down somewhere. 10 minutes later, she finally answered. "Honey, I'm running a bit late, just finishing up the last task, and then I'll be home." Her tone was upbeat, but instead of silence, Paul heard a weird beeping in the background, like an alarm or some kind of notification. He noticed it, but didn't think much of it. Throughout the week, Paul kept hearing those strange beeping noises during his phone calls with Christine, assuming they were just computer notifications. Then one day, after work, he ran into his old friend Vladimir at the mall. Vladimir was excitedly showing off his smartwatch, fresh from repairs. As they sat down in a cafe, Paul suddenly caught that familiar beep, the exact same sound he'd been hearing during his wife's calls. Glancing around, he realized it was coming from Vladimir's wrist. "That's just my watch, don't worry," Vladimir explained casually. "You can set alarms and reminders on these things." It hit Paul. That must be what he'd been hearing when talking to Christine. But something didn't add up. Christine never owned a smartwatch, and she kept insisting she was alone in the office since she was the only newbie. Curious and suspicious, Paul decided to visit Christine's workplace the very next day to see for himself and meet her colleagues. Luckily, he had the day off, so he went under the guise of dropping off some documents. Standing by her desk, Paul noticed a man a few steps away who was glancing at his own watch, then quickly silencing it. Their eyes met. Paul immediately recognized the man. He'd seen him once before when he'd picked Christine up from work. Back then, the man was heading out of the business center for a smoke break, and Christine had said he probably worked in a neighboring office. But now, everything clicked. Paul realized his wife was deceiving him. The man was Christine's coworker, chatting and laughing with others by the water cooler, glancing directly at Paul with a knowing smile. It was clear this was no accident. They were sending a message. Paul stepped forward and asked, "Are you one of Christine's colleagues?" The man smirked. "You're lucky," he said, sharing a knowing grin with another employee nearby who chuckled quietly. "And I'm lucky too. If you catch my drift," he added with a sly look. Paul clenched his fists tightly, ready to lash out, but the other man calmly placed a hand on his shoulder and strolled over to Christine's desk. Loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, "Stick around after work today. I'll show you a new program. You'll love it." Christine's face flushed deep red, and she quickly averted her eyes. That was the last straw for Paul. He lunged at the brazen man, knocking him to the ground. Chaos erupted. Women nearby screamed in shock, and colleagues rushed in to pull them apart. Paul didn't resist when they asked him to leave, but not before leaving a clear mark on his opponent's cheek. As Paul made his way to the car, Christine hurried after him, concern etched on her face as she noticed the cuts and bruises. She reached out to touch his face, but he shoved her hand away sharply. "Don't you dare," he growled. "You slept with him, didn't you? Why? Look at you. You're bleeding. Let me help," Christine pleaded. "Stop dodging the question," Paul pressed on. "You were never alone in that office. So tell me, did you sleep with him?" Tears shimmered in Christine's eyes, the truth crushing her. She nodded faintly, burying her face in her hands. "How could you?" Paul whispered, voice heavy with pain. "What were you missing?" "It just happened. Please forgive me," she sobbed. Paul held back the storm of anger raging inside, unwilling to break the fragile woman before him. Without another word, he climbed into the car and drove away, hoping Christine wouldn't come back to their home again. But she came back, begging for forgiveness, promising to quit the job, talking about having a future baby, about building a strong family. Paul couldn't help but feel a bit amused. Calmly, he told her to pack her things and vanish. The very next day, he filed for divorce. Christine moved in with her sister, not expecting any kind of relationship with her lover. She just wanted to erase the past and focus on her work. Yet, she soon learned that this colleague had a pattern. He did the same to almost every new employee, fully aware they wouldn't stick around for long. The stress took its toll. Christine started making mistakes, and after a major blunder with a key client, she was let go. So, because of her short-sightedness and a colleague's ego-driven games, yet another family fell apart. Every day, we're surrounded by countless temptations, but the choice between family and fleeting pleasures shapes a person's entire future.